LG Cinema 3D Super Tournament.
Bounce, bounce, come on baby. Bounce, bounce, come on baby. I don't care about a thing as long as I get to you.
Alright everyone,
'Cause I like your back, that smack.
I didn't know if my mic was on yet or not, but welcome back to the LG Cinema 3D Super Tournament. I am Wolf, and joined with me is no one but myself. I'm here alone today at the Super Tournament. We've got some great games coming up today. Every matchup imaginable, in fact. No mirror matchups today. So we've got a PVZ, PVT, and a ZVT. So all three matchups will be shown today. So, I know it's a little strange to have me here on my camera by myself. Tastosis are not here because they're at MLG. Noah Moletrap, he has actually gone home as well. So I know there's a lot of questions, and you guys are wondering why this is happening. Basically, it's just kind of a funky situation that we have here because I'm the only caster here right now, and no one else could join me. Tried to get John the translator in here, but that didn't quite work out, unfortunately, so couldn't bring John along. I just brought my two imaginary friends. They're both actually sitting here or standing here. There's no chairs, as you can see. I'm here by myself, but we've got some awesome games. First up, we've got oGsjookTo playing against MVP Keen, and actually, I think oGsjookTo is going to have his work cut out for him because his ZVT is pretty bad. In fact, here's the match results from yesterday. I am MVP, taken out by Slayer's Gonzi, and actually a very stunning series and a very surprising outset of that series, outcome I should say. Slayer's MMA took out Supernova 2-1, a pretty close series as well. Slayer's Ryung just barely edged out MVP Violet 2-1, and Ness T took out Startail Bomber, who actually missed his flight today, 2-0 in that series. It looked pretty strong. Actually, some people might even say he crushed him in that series. So those are yesterday's match results. Three Slayer's players advancing to the round of 16 yesterday. Now today's match, we've got MVP Keen versus oGsjookTo. TSL Trickster, I just spoke with him a moment ago, versus the best Foyu. MVP Genius versus Slayer's Min. Hong and Prime Wee versus TSL Revival. So a lot of variety of teams here today. In fact, 2 MVP players and 2 TSL players, but otherwise we've got pretty good variety of teams here. No team kills, not a whole lot of weird conflicts where you've got a ton of players playing on one day like we had yesterday. Just a lot of team variety. And every matchup, like I said, PVZs, 2 of them. Actually, 3 PVZs and a TVZ, so a lot of PVZ here today at the studio at the GSL Super Tournament. This is the round of 32, by the way. We will actually be giving interviews to the players after each win, so whoever wins the best of 3 will be interviewed at the end, and I'll have some producers translating for me in my ear. A lot of people actually ask me on my Twitter, can you speak Korean, Wolf? Well, actually, a little bit, but not really. I can order some food, can get around. If people ask me some questions, I can kind of figure it out, but more importantly, most people around here speak a little bit of English, and everyone looks at me and they're like, oh, you're an American guy. So I know that you probably can't speak Korean, so not a lot of people try to speak Korean to me, but I have had these few moments where people try to speak Korean to me, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying, and then I try to tell them in Korean that I don't speak Korean, and they just keep talking to me in Korean, but eventually you figure it out. So if you do come here to Seoul, Korea, and you come to the studio, there are a lot of English speakers here, especially in the studio, and you can find your way around pretty easily. In fact, there's guides on gomtv.net. You can come down here, you can meet me or Tastosis when they're here. The players are all very friendly. A lot of people actually have been asking me if you can get jackets or shirts from the players, but you actually can't unless they like you or they get you in the crowd. But here are our players. First up, we've got MVP Keen. His GSL ranking is 70th, so he's gotten pretty high up in the ranking despite not playing that much recently. He made it to the Code A semifinals, was taken out there, but did make it to Code S in the up and down matches. And he took out TSL Rain in the Super Tournament 2-0, and he is a pretty scary opponent indeed. In fact, his win rate versus Zerg right now is 100%, and he's only played 4 games of it at the GSL, but he's won all 4 of those. So he's looking pretty solid, pretty strong here. There's a shot of him now. He's got his Gatorade in the background. He's cracking his knuckles. He's getting ready. He looks very calm and collected about today's match. So he's got that MVP shirt. There's, like I was saying earlier, a lot of people ask me, can you buy the shirts? Can you buy the jerseys? Not really. You just have to be lucky. Sometimes the coaches will give them out at the studio. So if you're lucky, you'll get one. If you want a jacket, you've got to make friends with the coach. That's tough. All right, next up, we've got oGsjookTo, a Zerg player who a lot of people are kind of judgmental about, but as you see, his GSL ranking is 47th. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. He's played in the open seasons 3 times, so it's not actually shown here on the screen, but he did play in 3 open seasons, and he was in Code S in January, but has since fallen down to Code A, and actually lost in the round of 32 in the March Code A, so he's actually now a Code B player, so he has to requalify if he wants to play in Code A again. So this may be kind of, we've had a lot of players like this who are in the Super Tournament because they have so many points under their belt, but they're not actually doing that well right now, so if he doesn't win here in the Super Tournament or do well here in the Super Tournament, you may not see him again for a while because he's going to have to requalify, and as you guys know, that's actually one of the hardest things that you could ever possibly do. There's a shot of him now. He's chewing some gum. He's got his shiny OGS jacket on. OGS has several different jackets. And that one actually is my favorite. It just looks really shiny and awesome. There's a shot of our studio right now. You can see GSL logo there. All right, so we're going to get a little bit more info about these players. Now, you can see the recent 10 sets versus Zerg, versus Zerg, you can see that he won 3-0, and he's actually played a 4th match and won that one as well. It's just not shown. The recent 10 sets, he lost to MVP and then beat MVP and then lost again. So MVP did beat him in the Code A semifinals. Now he did defeat Trickster 2-0, which may become important because Trickster's pretty close to him in the bracket. Now, some of the stats are actually cut off on my screen, but he did beat Min, lost to Frozen, and beat Rain. So those are some Team League games, if I remember correctly. Now at the bottom, we've got oGsjookTo, who lost a lot recently. Look at his 3 wins and 7 losses. You see several losses against Fruit Dealer. Bonbon's Killer did beat Killer one of those games, but ended up losing to him overall. And did defeat Any Pro to get to where he is now. So some of those wins were cut off the screen, so if I didn't read them in the right order, I apologize. All right, so these 2 players getting ready. The first map is Belcher Beach. The second map, of course, Zelnaga Fortress. The third map, Crevasse. Keen eliminated Dual Sight, and oGsjookTo eliminated Crossfire. So these 2 guys head-to-head here at the GSL. oGsjookTo with a very, very bad win rate versus Terran, 12.5%. It's 1-7, and MVP Keen beating every Zerg he's ever seen. He's 4-0 right now. It's going to be hard work for oGsjookTo to take down MVP Keen. We'll see if he can do it. The countdown has started. The match is about to begin. Who's going to take Game 1? We'll find out here in just a second. Here at the GSL Super Tournament, sponsored by LG, Intel, and G-Skill.
MVP King versus oGsjookTo.
All right, over here in the red, spawning as a Terran. He is on the team MVP. Great win rate versus Zerg. He is
MVP King.
my first time doing intros here at the GSL. Getting used to it. All right, over here at the top left, a player on the team OGS hasn't been doing well against Terran recently. He is.
oGsjookTo.
Don't have as much time as I would have thought. All right, there's a shot of oGsjookTo now. So the map is Belcher Beach, which is a relatively new map for those of you guys who haven't been tuning into the GSL. The natural is actually pretty wide open, so it's relatively hard to defend. And in addition, it's actually got 2 entrances. So a Terran player on this map might struggle to hold off Baneling attacks, Zergling aggression. He has to be very careful with his building placement, has to wall off correctly. It looks like it is going to be a Speedling expand coming out from oGsjookTo right at the start. So these 2 players, let's talk a little bit about them a little bit more. I know it's a little bit strange. I do apologize, guys. I am casting by myself, and I don't have a lot of experience with it recently. I've done a lot of stuff in the past. So bear with me as I adjust and get used to this casting alone experience. Now, scouting SCV coming out for Keen. Overlord going. Of course, there's only 2 spawning locations on this map, so pretty normal scout timings. Neither player having to scout really early to see where their opponent is. There's no sort of thought that goes into, oh, I can't do this particular build if he's not this position, because it's a 2-player map. So as you can see, those rocks there somewhat block one of the entrances to the natural. If you break those down, it's a lot easier to transverse between the 2. Now Keen's going to come in here. He's going to see the spawning pool. He's going to see the gas. He's going to know immediately that it is a speedling expand. Pretty normal Zerg opening, especially on this map. It's very wide open natural. Like I said, if you try to go hatch first and your opponent puts on 2 barracks pressure, not only is it a wide open natural, but there are only 2 spawning locations. You know where your opponent is. The rush distance on this map, not that huge, so you have to be very careful. Ooh, making the factory on the high ground here. Both spawning locations do have that little high ground location at the choke point. It's kind of cool to make that factory up there. That means it can't be scouted by Zerglings or Overlord. Well, if an Overlord gets there, it can scout it, but if the Zerglings run by, unless they have vision of it, they won't be able to see. Alright, so it looks like oGsjookTo is going to go ahead and make that hatchery. In fact, he mined about 48 extra gas, so that means that he may be thinking about following up with roaches, unless it was a mistake, but it's very unlikely. He's going to come up here, he's going to want to see this reactor, which is going to tip him off immediately. Okay, you're doing reactor Hellions. I can't see the factory, but I know you're hiding it somewhere. I know you're going to switch it. I'm sure he's practiced a lot on this map, knows that you can hide the factory up at the high ground. And here come those Zerglings now. Going forward, in fact, he does see the factory, so he's 123% sure it's going to be reactor Hellions. But Keen actually not going to lift that barracks up because he doesn't want those Zerglings to run. It's kind of an unfortunate situation for Keen because those Zerglings came at that particular timing. If he tried to switch the add-ons, the Zerglings could block that and run in. And if any of you guys out there played StarCraft 1, you know that in StarCraft 1, walling off is actually extremely difficult. And sometimes if you don't have it set up perfectly, the Zerglings are running, you just lose. Very reminiscent. That was a Terran player in StarCraft 1. You got to be very careful with your add-ons. A lot of games lost in StarCraft 1 based on when buildings were lifted. Now the Zerglings are going to try to run in. They will get in, but that's okay because there is a Hellion, but he needs to control that Hellion a little bit better. Does start microing that Hellion now. The Marine on the high ground as well, going to come and help out. And the Zerglings do see everything, and they do see a second gas. But what's most important about this is not that the Zerglings got into the base, but was that they slowed down the reactor from being made. There's one less Hellion, and you know, these sort of things, when you're doing a very specific build, very specific timings, you get that second Hellion out a little bit slower. That means you have 3 Hellions instead of 4 when your first group of Hellions comes. That's the big deal about this. Not really as so much that the Zerglings got in and saw everything, because there wasn't that much to see. Command Center is finishing up, by the way, for Keen. Hellion running around. Now, oGsjookTo is making an Evolution Chamber, which will help him block here. He actually canceled that creep tumor, it looks like, to make sure the Hellions can't pick it off. Now, with that Spine Crawler there and the Queen, it's going to be very difficult for these Hellions to do damage. They're going to try to force it, though. May sacrifice themselves to get a few drone kills. Lair has started for oGsjookTo. He has completely skipped the Roach Warren. Is going to completely avoid using roaches to defend against these Hellions, rather going to rely on those Queens and the Spine Crawler. Hellions trying to attack that Queen. Queen's very slow off of creep, can be kited by Hellions, so you have to be very careful. He actually immediately switched that reactor onto the starport. That's very interesting, making a Viking and a medevac. We've seen a lot of Terran players do that recently, where they get that Viking, hold that thought, here comes some Hellions, trying to pick off a creep tumor, not able to. But as I was saying, a lot of players recently have been making that one Viking with their first medevac so they can chase Overlords away, and we've seen 3 and 4 kills sometimes with Vikings, cleaning up those Overlords. That's very frustrating for a player like oGsjookTo because he might get supply blocked. He no longer has the vision that he needs. Stim is about halfway done. A Baneling Nest has been started for oGsjookTo. See, there's an Overlord getting shot down now. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Viking has found him. This is a persistent Viking, unlike the Vikings we saw yesterday, who weren't quite so keen on killing those Overlords and dropships in certain cases. There's a shot of that Baneling Nest. Alright, SCV is being transferred here for Keen, so he's got his command center up relatively quickly. Has added 2 more barracks. He's got 2 reactors in the tech lab, so he's got that stim coming. He's going to get those combat shields immediately afterwards. So he's kind of transitioned into a very normal build. What he doesn't have, though, as far as I can see, is a factory with a tech lab, and no, he does not. So he's just now making that tech lab on that factory. Hellion does get caught by those Zerglings. So his siege tanks are a little bit late, but he wants to go straight into those medevacs, start doing bio drops, starting to control the map with that bio rather than playing defensively. And I kind of like this because he knows his opponent doesn't have that many speedlings. He knows the Baneling Nest was a little bit late.